We have now indexed a vector, we have indexed a list, but we will also want to index a data frame. That's what this section is all about. When we index a data frame, we have to keep in mind that unlike the vector, a data frame has two dimensions. Thus, when we use the index in brackets, we need to tell R that there are actually two dimensions by giving it two arguments, and it looks as follows. So this is the data frame that we've been working with, and I want to index this data frame. I open up the index in brackets. Now to let it know that there are two dimensions, to give it two arguments, you put a comma. In R, you always separate arguments by a comma. And when indexing, every space represents one particular dimension separated by a comma. The first argument represents the rows, and the second argument represents the columns. If you leave the argument empty, what this tells R is that you want to select everything in it. So if I index as follows, where I give it empty space rows, empty space columns, is actually going to give me all of the rows and all of the columns. So it is no different than simply typing df. But let's say I wanted to select only one particular column. To do that, I go df, comma, I leave the rows empty, and here I can put the column that I want. In this case, I want the h column. When I type that in, I'm going to get back the numerical vector of h. If, alternatively, I wanted to select the rows, I can simply leave the columns empty, give it the rows that I want, and I'm going to get the second row for all of the columns. If I wanted to be more specific, I can give it, I want the second row and the second column, and I would get something along these lines, which is the number 22, because that is what is on the second column and on the second row. When looking at a column, I can also select it by the name of that column. So for example, if again we're working with, I want all of the rows for the second column, I can simply type 2. Or alternatively, I can again select all of the rows, but I want only the column called age. Now this is going to give me exactly the same result, except in this case it's not limited by the position. So if the position were to change in my data frame for whatever reason, by selecting the name of the data frame, I'm always able to still get the same column that I want. You can also select the row by its name, but to do that you have to do it as such. So this time we're df, and we want the row where the name is Bob, for example, right? So again, I need my two dimensions, and I want all of the columns for that particular row, but I want only the rows where the column called df name is equivalent to Bob. So here I'm giving it again a logical question, which is saying where is it that the column df name, remember that the dollar sign is one way to indicate that I'm selecting from a column, and wherever in this column the value is equivalent to Bob, I want you to give me all of the columns. And I'm going to get back name, age, country, and pet for my row wherein the name is equal to Bob. You can combine this together in order to get specific sets of your data. So for example, for df, if I once again want everywhere where the name is equivalent to Bob, and remember to put Bob under quotation marks, but I also only want to get back the column age, I can type it as such, and I'm going to get back 22. So these are different ways in which you can index a data frame by position or by its name, and you can always combine these. And which way you use will often depend on how your data is set up or the way that you decide to work. At this point, you can already start with exercise number 6, where you're going to be indexing a data frame and playing around with these rows and columns and getting acquainted with it. Good luck.